Hey everybody, this is Matthew Soltesiak, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast, part of the Minute Media Podcast Network. This season, it's all grit. I speak with a variety of guests and interview key players, gaining more insight on what makes this team go. The Detroit Lions are now in a new, grittier era, and we look beyond just the kneecaps when it comes to the analysis. Welcome to another episode. In this episode, we discuss the Detroit Lions' 34-17 victory over the Chicago Bears. The team now has 13 wins for the first time in franchise history, and the Lions still haven't had a losing streak in more than 2 years. We'll talk about what went well, any concerns we have, and of course, we'll look at where things stand as there are now only 2 games remaining in the NFL regular season. That and more. Let's get to it, Lions fans.
Hey everyone, this is Lomas Brown, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast.
Joining me today is James Cook, the senior sports writer for the Traverse City Record Eagle. You can hear him on the Get Around podcast that drops on Mondays as well. James, good to have you here.
Always good. Victory Sunday, Victory Monday, whatever it is. If it starts with victory, it's a good day.
That it is, and we're doing this in the evening, and we're getting right to it because, well, the holiday season's upon us, and we got a Christmas present or two today. One of those presents is Coach Jerry Angers joining us, the former Michigan High School Coach of the Year as well as Coach of the Week by the Detroit Lions. He's also the current Scouting and Training Director for Bull Rush Sports. Coach, good to have you here.
Oh, great to be here. 1-0.
That we are, and I know that is a very important thing to you, and we will be getting into that. In fact, we aren't the only ones that even think about that. It's also coming from another coach, Coach Dan Campbell. Let's hear from him as we get started.
I was proud of our guys that bounced back. I knew they would. Right mindset. And it takes a special group of guys to emotionally, physically, psychologically bounce back after a tough loss, especially when you haven't lost in a while. Go out and win on the road again. I told the guys that I did know that was a team record, franchise record, 13 wins has never been done. And I told them one day we'll be able to look back and enjoy that, but not yet. It's not the time. So we got our work cut out for us next week. San Francisco on the road, very good team. But as far as today, we did what we had to do. Got 2 takeaways, turned those into 10 points. Got up on them early and really was able to control the game.
All right, guys, we heard from Coach, talked about happy the way they responded, talked about how this is a franchise record, but they can't talk about it right now, or they can't reflect on it right now. They can't enjoy it. There's work to be done. So give me your overall reaction in a sentence or two. James, let's start with you.
13 wins for the first time in franchise history, man. Enjoy this season, my friends. Soak it in, savor it, appreciate it. This hasn't happened pretty much to any of us before. So just enjoy this, man. Everybody was so down after last week that just move on, enjoy this season. It's been a terrific ride, and we hope that it continues.
Hear, hear, sir. I'm going to add to that and say we still don't have a losing streak since starting 1-6 back in 2022. In about 9 days, it becomes 2025, you guys. So October 30th, 2022 is the last time the Lions lost multiple games in a row. It goes to the players we have. It goes to the coaching staff that we have. And you're right, James. Enjoy this time, right? I mean, we don't know what the future holds. We don't know how the season's going to end. But, man, enjoy the ride that we're on. Coach, we went 1-0. What's your overall reaction?
Excited. We did exactly what we said we had to do, run the football. JMO had a day. Defense, bend, don't break. We scored on first 5 possessions, and Iffy was out there. Oh, God, I love seeing number 6 out there. I'm sorry. He made a couple mistakes here and there. But he is a game changer, and it makes our defense that much better as we continue to get guys back. Way to set the tone, foot on the gas, keep rolling.
All right, I can't wait to hear even more about Iffy when we talk about that defense. But let's get started. Let's talk about what we liked in this game. James, let's start with you.
There wasn't a whole lot to not like, but the best thing I think is no injuries. Uh, I'm looking at this and I'm not sure how many exclamation points I put on the end of that in addition to all caps in the rundown, but it isn't enough how many of it is. How long has it been since we've had a game where we've not talked afterwards and somebody's been hurt for probably multiple games? I don't know if it's happened this season. So very welcome for that to happen, especially this late in the season with the precarious way the Lions were with so many injuries to not have any more.
Yeah, I mean, we even had guys filling in unexpectedly, from a week ago. We had a new guy on the offensive line today and played pretty well as well. But yeah, the blue tent never went up once. A person did not visit that for the Lions. So that's definitely something to be happy about, coming out of this game healthy and knowing we have some guys on the mend. Coach, what's something you got here that you liked about this game?
I think needed to get back in win the turnover battle. Those started out early and quick. I mean, those are the big things. And the key with that, as I already said, that we, 5 straight possessions, but we took control. We took, excuse me, used those for motivation and got points out of it. I was a little concerned with the 2 field goals early. Started to look like back in the game earlier in the season when we were up, 16-0 at halftime. But then that freaking strike to JMO, I looked at it and said, this game's over with.
If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge, from worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
All right, well, let's hit on what you said there. The first thing you said a couple there. The turnovers, right? We didn't get interceptions, but the defense did come up with 2 turnovers. I believe Pascal got on the second turnover, and the first one was forced. And as a combination play there, I believe it was Amik Robertson's knee that hit the elbow. And was it Ben Neiman that recovered that fumble? Was that right, guys?
I believe so.
All right. Well, either way, those things were nice. The Lions forced the Bears to go 3 and out. We had to settle for that field goal right away. We know the Bears have a good red zone defense, and that did show up again, Coach. But there was some great creative play calling in this one. And that only was allowed to happen because of the offensive line play. So before we get to those creative play calls, James, let's talk about that offensive line.
Yeah, Christian Mahogany making his first NFL start, and he totally looked like he belongs in the NFL. Very good first start for him. It'll be interesting to see what the PFF and all those other grades become. But I mean, in the eye test, he passed with flying colors. Looked good at getting to the next level, at maintaining his blocks. Footwork looked good. I mean, so that bodes very, very well for the Detroit Lions. Already looked better than anything I've seen from Sorsdal in the last 2 seasons. And Goff was only sacked once in the whole game, and that one was on coverage sack where just nobody was open, so he had to kind of eat it. So that one wasn't yet to blame on the line, really. So Mahogany's first start, really good one. I think it kind of maybe checks one thing off the list for the draft next year was, maybe getting another interior lineman because, maybe Sorsdal's not going to work out kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, the running game came back here. I think we averaged about 4.5 yards a carry, somewhere right around that number. But we had 146 yards on the ground. Jahmyr Gibbs had 109 yards on 23 carries. So it wasn't like we had too many carries for him. We didn't, overwork him. It was nice to see Jamar Jefferson in there, Craig Reynolds in there, getting some work. And so the running game got going, Coach, and that really allowed the playbook to open up.
Oh, no doubt about it. Our play action pass is relentless, and anytime we can run that, as good as Jared Goff is on it, it's there's nobody can stop us, and that's the thing is against Buffalo, and against Tampa. Let's go back to the 2 games we threw the most passes in, the 2 games that we lost, and when we get to that one-dimensional concept, yeah, we're going to outscore people, but if we can stay, in that ahead on the scoreboard or at least tied on the scoreboard so we can play action pass, there's nothing people can do with us. And another thing, we were 7 for 12 on third down today. Okay. 7 for 12. And that's just another one big. And I think we lead the league with 45.8%, if I'm not, or fifth best or something like that. But anyways, those are big plays. Kept the chains moving, stayed ahead of schedule, and used a bunch of different people to do that. And it wasn't just the Monty. Of course, he wasn't in there, and a Gibbs show or Sonic and Knuckles. We had 3 other running backs that got some reps. So great job, offensive coordinator. Great job of offensive line, and it was fun to watch because we looked at him and said we can outscore anybody we need to, long as we're within a score.
For sure. And like you said, Jared Goff had time to throw today, and he found people. He found Jamison Williams in stride, mind you, on an 82-yard pass play. I don't know if it was airborne for 45 or 50 yards of that, but he hit him in stride. And then there was that creative play call where it was the stumble fumble or something like that. I forget the name they were coming up with, but it was make it look like it's a fumble. Jahmyr Gibbs dives to the ground. And I think you could hear people yelling fumble or something through the TV. And then suddenly it's none of that. Gibbs gets right back up and helps block. And then perfect pass to Sam Laporta, James. I mean, that was right on target, and Laporta was able to get open. Perfectly executed play.
Yeah, and you're right. If you turn it up a little bit afterwards, you could hear the lineman yelling fumble, which the Bears completely bid on. Everybody kind of started moving up, which was what you would normally do in that situation. If you think that there's a fumble, you got to get the vicinity to try to get the recovery. And that just left Sam Laporta wide open. It's pretty great. Yeah, the Lions called it the stumble bum.
That's what it is.
People in TV were calling it the stumble Rooski. And apparently, one of the stories that came out, I think, at the press conference afterwards, I think it was Jared Goff saying that one of the original ideas on that was to actually have Jared Goff fumble the ball and get it back and then throw it to Laporta. But Goff was a little hesitant to do that, so they changed it.
Yeah, they said they worked through different iterations of the play, coach, which makes sense because you're gonna rep it, of course, but you got to see, all right, what's going to be the least chance of something going wrong? Well, you probably don't want to intentionally put the ball on the ground, and you never know what type of pressure is going to be there in the middle of this play. And fortunately, there was no pressure right in the middle of the play. It all worked out probably as perfectly as they could have planned, right, Coach?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. The University of Nebraska used to put the ball on the ground, and they'd have the guard pick it up and take it in. But here's one thing everybody's missing and not talking about. I think Jared Goff was actually practicing that stumble a couple weeks ago when he handed the ball off when we went for it on 4th down when we should have kicked the field goal instead of winning the game. Anyways, we won't get back to that. So I think he had already had practice on that. So it was even good. I'll tell you, we were, all of us were watching it. And we're like, what are you doing, Goff? And then when they showed the replay, you realize he did it. But the best is, you guys, if you rewatch it and watch the linebacker from the Bears staring and looking down at the ground, trying to figure out, and then all of a sudden Goff comes up and he's standing up with the ball in his hand, and you can see in his face like, oh my God, and touchdown. So, I mean, those guys do so many things, and, you heard it. You heard the stumble, you heard the fumble, the practice, the details that this team has and does is unbelievable. And I've never seen it in 32 years of coaching football.
It really is incredible. And, coming from you, Coach, with all your coaching experience, just adds that much more to it. And, one of the cool things, surprisingly this year, maybe not, is just how well the team continues to do on the road, James.
Yeah, they are road warriors. The only team in the league that hasn't lost on the road yet this season. The Chiefs, Vikings, Seahawks all have one road loss. Everybody else has more than that, obviously. But in NFL history, only 9 teams have gone undefeated on the road in a season, and 5 of those won a Super Bowl. So that bodes pretty well.
That it does. Hey, you know what? I'll take those odds and see if we can't add and be one more team to that. Now, helping with that was the Lions defense, right? They held Chicago to 59 yards on the ground. DeAndre Swift had 20 yards rushing. Their leading rusher was Caleb Williams for 34 yards. Swift only averaged 2.2 yards a carry. His longest run was 7 yards. So again, they needed the quarterback to help them out. That helped make them more one-dimensional, James. You got to be pretty happy with that change from a week ago.
Yeah, the Bears' run game obviously isn't nearly as good as Buffalo's, but it's still nice to kind of grind them to a halt. I mean, 20 yards on 9 carries for Swift. That's pretty good for a defense that gave up 48 points the week before. Having Trevor Nowaski back at linebacker, I think helped that definitely. Having Levi and Josh Pascal with kind of another game under their belts from coming back from injury. I think they both looked better at holding the point of attack and moving the line of scrimmage a bit. The run defense just as a whole, I think, looked a whole lot better.
All right, the run defense looked better. Mohammed and Iffy each got sacks, Coach. I mean, nice improvement from the defense and a nice contributions from some guys as well.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, all across the board, Akuda, he had, I think he knocked it out of his hands. I think on the one, Jack Campbell jumped on. I mean, you go back and forth. Pittman, Pittman's in there. He's 41, and I'm going, he's 41. Who is that? Everybody's going, who is that guy? And then we realized it was Pittman. He got in there and got some reps. Again, they used a lot of their package stuff. I thought Arnold did a great job as the number one corner, other than he fell for a double move.
He did
at the end of the half. And you can't, those are CD does not do that because he's played so many years and saying, go ahead and catch the ball in front of me. Go ahead and step out of bounds. You're still not in field goal range. And the good thing is we won a football game. We gave up one of the biggest pass plays we've given up all year to a rookie. And that play will not happen again. And that's the thing is, and then you look at our corner plays, I think Robertson played outside. I'd be interested to see how many snaps he had on the outside. And, of course we got our safeties, and then you got Branch and you got Iffy and you got Joseph and now you got 3 dogs. I mean, 3 really good football players. And Iffy, we already talked about it, but just having him come off the edge. So just some great stuff that we can build on and get better for next week.
For sure. And, it was pivotal getting Ifeatu Melifonwu back, especially with Brandon Joseph no longer being with the team. We need him in that depth position, and not just as a depth player, but we know what type of player he is on the field, and that gave the Lions the opportunity to go with some different packages and move him up to help put pressure on the offensive line there when they have him blitzing. James, there's something else I think you wanted to add about this defense.
Yeah, it looked different because of the different personnel. A couple of guys coming back, like we said, Nowaski and Iffy, the Legion of whom kind of had their run, but a bunch of those players didn't get to play this week. David Long played, but he didn't play nearly as many snaps as he's played the last couple of games. He kind of yielded a few of those to Ben Neiman. Jonah Williams and Quan Alexander were both on the inactive list, and Jamal Adams wasn't elevated from the practice squad. So it's a big difference. A big different look, I think, than it was from the Buffalo game.
For sure. And it's nice having some of those guys back, right, Coach? And just knowing these other guys are still available later on if we need them.
Yes. And another guys, here's the one thing that I noticed out of it. We ran our base defense. Okay, we ran our base. We had 3 linebackers in there a lot, you guys. I don't know. I mean, I shouldn't say a lot. I'll have to look over the film, but just seeing that was just, that was like the first week of the season. I'm looking at it going, we actually can line up with 4 down linemen and 3 linebackers. And then we got these safeties, guys coming down in these corners playing position. So if we can get back into that, we haven't been able to get back in that. Glenn has had to dial up all these different blitz packages and these different groupings and things like that. But to see that, hence the reason they didn't rush very well. And hence the reason that, we gave up some big plays. Caleb's a good quarterback. He's talented, right? But just to see that. So I just wanted to, make note on that. And that comes from having the bodies that we can line up. And I'm not sure which guys run it, but that was just good to see that 4-3 base look that we run.
Makes a lot of sense. Anything else you'd like before we turn to turning points or pivotal moments? All right. Well, then I want to start with a pivotal moment. I mean, obviously the turnovers were big, right? Those fumbles right away. And the Bears going 3-and-out to start this contest. The Lions coming back, scoring a couple times. James, it's great to get up early like that.
Yeah, those early fumbles by the Bears, I think, were a big thing. Gave Detroit a 13-0 lead, all the momentum, all the confidence. And then Tyreek Stevenson dropping what should have been an easy interception that hit him right in the chest, kept all that momentum in Detroit, too.
Yeah, and the Lions handled it well, even though they gave up that touchdown right before half by playing the clock the way they did it. There weren't tons of turning points or pivotal moments, but there were some. And this one, I want to go to a drive, you guys, that did not result in any points. The Lions were leading 34-17 in the third quarter, I believe. And it was 3rd and 17. Goff scrambles. He finds St. Brown only like 6 yards down the field. And St. Brown, that man had some elusive runs after the catch, including that touchdown one in the game. But this one, he follows Jahmyr Gibbs and picks up the 17 yards for the first down to keep the ball going, to keep the drive going. And I believe it was just a play or two later, they ran a pitch play to J-Mo. Gibbs gets the handoff. I mean, Gibbs like reached around 2 players to make the pitch. It was a disaster waiting to happen. And I don't know how he got that pitch back to J-Mo. And J-Mo turned into some positive yardage. And so those were big because they kept the drive going. They kept time coming off the clock. And especially as once you got to the fourth quarter, especially, it was more about, let's just run this clock. Let's just get the clock going. Again, the Lions didn't get points on that drive, I don't think. But the important thing is they kept the drive going and they got more time off it. And that kept their defense rested. The time of possession, there wasn't a big difference in the end. I think it was about 3 or 4 minutes, but that helped the Lions defense.
Sure, they
Coach,
moved
go ahead.
the clock on it. Yeah, you're right, and I think that's the biggest thing is run the clock out or take it down so that they have to be in desperate mode. Those are big, those are pivotal moments in that situation. Even though we didn't get a score in one of those situations, we just did what we're supposed to do on that. And speed kills. Guys, J-Mo, speed kills. Gibbs, speed kills. He got on the edges on those, and that's the thing is we were like, what are you doing flipping that ball? It looked like he kind of reached around him, like you said, and handed it off to him. We were freaking out, but then I'm like, J-Mo's got it. He's probably going to turn it into a positive. So, and again, big plays in big situations.
Yeah, I mean, even there was that one where Gibbs looked like he was going to be tackled for a 2-yard loss, and he spun around the guy and picked up a first down. Agility, elusiveness, and speed. So, and yeah. So I guess those are kind of the turning points I saw. James, any other turning points, anything pivotal moments that you saw?
The Stumbleruski play, I think, was a big one too. I think that was kind of one of the early nails in the coffin for the Chiefs. I mean, for the Bears. And just I think that kind of blew things open a bit.
Well, James, let me ask you about that one, because some people are already saying, why are the Lions using that now? And they've been saying that for about 7 to 10 weeks now, and Ben Johnson keeps saying the well is deep. Do you have a problem with the Lions doing a play like that versus saving it for a playoff game?
No, not at all. I mean, like Ben Johnson says, we got a million more. So why not use them? I think at this point they're just picking one every week and saying we're going to run this at some point. And they have a whole bunch of other ones that he's already got drawn up and has in his back pocket. And, no problem with this whatsoever.
And Coach, we talked about this already, but you said when you put those things on tape, the other team's got to prepare for it. And then they can't just let, instinct take over. They have to think a little bit, which can slow them down a little bit more. Is that kind of accurate the way I'm saying that?
Yes, you got it. Here's the thing: is people have to practice those things. People have to think about those things. People in a game. We got them to jump off sides again, you guys. Okay, these are things that these guys coach and use, and it's again we go back to Dan Campbell says we are going to do this in this game, and Ben Johnson and AG and Flip, and we do those things in those games. Doesn't matter. Here's the other thing: that down the road, okay, what if Jared Goff does stumble and fumble the ball? Maybe they coach that up so much that the other team slows down to go get it. We do pick it up this time, and he throws another touchdown. I just love it, you guys. I don't, they're always one step ahead no matter what situation or what the game is, and they don't care who they're playing, when it is, where it is, what it is. Dan Campbell said it. We're going to win 1-0 or win by 1 point, and he doesn't care, and that's what. So we won by a little more than one.
And when he came out for his press conference, the first thing he did, he's like, and I'm smiling because he said, I'm going to smile if we win by just 1 point or more, whatever. I'm going to smile. And he did. And you're right. I mean, I think back to last year in the playoffs when the Lions were in the formation that they've never, ever run out of with Craig Reynolds in there on 4th down, and they run it up the middle with Craig Reynolds for a touchdown. So you put things on tape, you put tendencies on tape so you can go against those tendencies and trick your opponents. All right, well, let's move over to some things we didn't like. James, let's start with you. What do you got here?
Jamison Williams getting another unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, and another one involving Tyreek Stevenson. Stevenson tried to trip him on the sidelines the last time they played, and then this time gets baited into another one after he tackles him kind of a little bit late, but I don't think it was late enough to be a penalty or anything. So I mean, he's got to just learn to just take the ball, shut him up, and go back to the huddle.
Well, let me add on this. There were a couple weird penalties in this game for unsportsmanlike. One against the Lions, and there was one against the Bears. And I kind of thought neither of them should have existed. The one on JMO, I guess after the game, he was asked about it. He said he didn't say anything. He just spun the ball. And the ref gave a penalty for that based on the reaction to the side from the sideline by the Bears. And so that was his thought or his reaction to that. Obviously, he was off the field. Campbell was talking to him after, for a play or two. Then he came back in. And there was one later where the Bears player got one where one of the Lions players threw the ball up in the air and the Bears player batted at the ball. And I don't quite understand why that happened either. So I think some of these unsportsmanlike conduct penalties are kind of going overboard. Coach, what did you see, and what's your thought on some of these?
Well, I think the JMO one was a little weak, even though it was on the sidelines and he spun the ball, but it's on the Bears sidelines. You have to know, JMO and the team has to know, if you're on the opposing sidelines, as soon as you do anything, even though it may not be wrong, the other team's going to be screaming, which could possibly influence the official to throw a flag. I would have loved to hear that conversation with him and MCDC on the sidelines. Craig Reynolds, I believe, is the one who threw the ball towards the referee, but it kind of hit that guy. He baited him. I love that. And here's the thing is, you're not allowed to knock the ball. The ball, if he's throwing the ball to the official and he knocks the ball away, that's an unsportsmanlike conduct, hands down. Hands down, because he knocked the ball away. He knocked the ball away from the official catching it, which is a delay of game or unsportsmanlike conduct. What if they're going to quick hurry up offense? So that's a good one. The JMO one, you got to know where you're at. You got to know your surroundings. And here's the other thing is, yesterday, and I bring this up because I watched the Ravens game, and they're the DB, that's been there forever, intercepts the ball, and he starts at about the 8-yard line, looking back, holding the ball out, taunting, and there's no flag thrown. Yet,
right.
When Gibbs a couple weeks ago turns around backwards, he gets a flag. So like I used to say to the officials, if you're going to be bad, be consistent bad. If you're going to be good, be consistent good. And it's not consistent. So, yeah. But choose your surroundings.
Since we're talking about penalties, I'll talk about the one on Scott Daly. I think that's what they said his name was on the broadcast. Obviously, they were talking about Hatton there, the center. I guess he moved the football a little bit, so then the Bears saw that, so then they jumped, is what the announcer said. I didn't get to see the video, but that made it a 65-yard attempt instead of a 60-yard attempt. Don't want a penalty like that, but Coach, I see you reacting. I think you have a little more insight on this.
Yeah, I'm going to look at it again when I can see the end zone view to see how much you move. Everybody moves the ball. The ball's always moved. The only thing I can figure out if they did call it was that when they pick the ball up, they'll pick the ball up and not really pick it up and set it down, but get it towards themselves a little bit. He may have rocked it up or down and maybe picked the back end up and then snapped it. He looked a little confused on it. So I'd like to watch it. But again, if he double moved it, then yeah, it's a penalty. But again, there's another one of those. I mean, I watch it nonstop, guys moving the ball. I watched 3 college games this weekend, and every time they lined up, they showed the black line where the ball was, and when the center finally had the ball in his hand, it was behind the black line. You know what I'm saying? So somebody's
Yeah.
moving. So yeah, I'd have to look. But that was kind of critical. But it's also, again, something that happened, just like the JMO, getting beat deep. Things that they will coach up and learn from, and we'll never see that again. Not with this coaching staff.
Yeah, and it's too bad because made it 65 yards. It was wide and just a tad short. It looked like it would have been nice to have seen that 60-yard attempt from Jake Bates. James, what do you want to add about the defense here?
Well, I mean, the Bears' offensive line wasn't very good. They had 2 guys out coming into the game. They lost another one during the game in their left tackle, and the Lions still didn't generate a ton of pressure. They didn't bring a whole lot of extra blitzes or anything like that. Kind of like last week. They brought Iffy a couple of times, once pretty early, like this. I think it was the second play of the game.
Yeah.
They brought Iffy on a blitz, and that generated a nice pressure. But they didn't bring a whole lot of extra blitzes too much, but they didn't really just generate much pressure on that banged up offensive line. Jerry said in the preview they've given up the most sacks in the NFL. The Lions got 2 in this game.
Yeah, you'd like to see numbers a little bit higher against that. I guess the one thing Campbell did say after the game is there's a lot to clean up on this, and this effort won't get it done against teams like Minnesota, is what he said. I'm kind of paraphrasing there, but he realizes that, hey, we got it done, we got the win, but there is work to do. And you're right, James, they are going to have to get a little bit more pressure because not every quarterback is going to miss fire when there's that much time. Let's talk about the short yardage. I said the running game did get better this week, but I think we were a little bit nervous early on, weren't we, James?
Yeah, I was a little concerned about the not being able to convert in short yardage situations. I don't know if that was a factor in why Campbell didn't go for it on 4th and 2 fairly early in the game and opted for a field goal early, or if it was just that we're playing a team that we expect to beat, so we're going to just take the points. But that was an interesting call. That's something that he normally doesn't make. I mean, a 4th and 2 is a go for it situation for him. And then when they had that 1st and goal, I mean, Gibbs got stuffed twice before he finally barely made it in the 3rd time. So the short yardage thing is a little concerning. I mean, Gibbs is not the same kind of runner as David Montgomery, who's the guy who punches those in. But I would have liked to maybe seen Baki or Reynolds in some of those situations too, and see what they can do with that.
Yeah, I guess going with the points, starting there, I'm glad they kicked the field goal and just put some points on the board because it's a team we're supposed to beat. So let's just get the points up there and start, even if it's going slow, let's start building that lead. The short yardage thing, especially at the goal line, the Bears have a great red zone defense. That's the only thing I kept coming back to is they have a great red zone defense. And I'm glad that when they weren't successful on 1st and 2nd down, that they ran it again on 3rd down and didn't give up because I felt like, yeah, you're not going to stop us 3 times in a row, but you are right on that. Without David Montgomery in there it's different. Christian Mahogany's in there as well. So you have another adjustment there. Coach, this is one of the things we brought up, 3rd and short, 4th and short. Who's going to be the Lions running back in these situations? Will they keep it being Gibbs? Is it going to be an assortment of guys? What are your thoughts on this topic?
I think there's some coaching going on there, guys. I'm going to tell you, a couple things I think about. Okay, so I agree with James on that 4th and 2. Why do they not go for it? They want to get points on the board. So let's go back to that, and then I'm going to touch base on the touchdown we didn't score on. So they go for it. They kick the field goal. Okay, the first time we played them, we had 3 field goals, right, and a touchdown. I think right, 16-0, right. This time we had the field goals, got to that 13, but then we banged 2 more touchdowns, right? And then we got a touchdown in the 3rd quarter. We went 2 for 1 in that situation. So I think he wanted to get the points in that because I don't think he wanted any negativity. And I think he wanted to be a point that if Chicago scores, we're still up 10-7. If we don't get that first down, if we don't get the first down in that and they score, it's 7-7. Okay. Does that make sense? So I think that's one of the things that he was thinking about. So we run the ball those 3 times, bang, bang, bang. We run the ball in the 4th quarter. We throw the ball twice on 3rd and 4th down on a 3rd and 3 and a 4th and 3.
Yes, we did.
Okay, you follow me? So now they have, what are they going to do? How many times? I mean, I'm like, why did we not run it twice there? Well,
Right.
they're working on something down the pipe that they wanted to see in this situation. How does this go? And the same thing, like you said, Mahogany, Gibbs will get better. Actually, Gibbs' has touchdown run and a couple of other runs, he looked really good hammering the middle. You know, he still wants to use that 11.6 miles per hour to line of scrimmage to get to the edge, but he did hit it pretty hard. So, and I think those other guys, now that they're into this role, we already talked about it, guys. They never overload anybody. And so Craig Reynolds and what are the other two? What's the other one's name?
Jamar Jefferson and Sione Vaki.
Jefferson and Vaki, and they don't overload those guys. They give them some reps because now they have 2 or 3 reps or 4 reps each. They look at it, they grade it, they go, "Can you do this? We got to do this. Boy, you didn't hit this right." Now the next game, if we're down the goal line, you may see Craig Reynolds in there hammering it. But they were going to ride Gibbs, and they wanted to make sure Gibbs knew that he was the dog. So
I think that.
a lot of good. Go ahead.
No, that makes so much sense, Coach, because you're exactly right. This is the first game with each of those guys having an elevated role. You're going to make them successful. You're going to put them in opportunities to succeed. So it's going to be baby steps, you know, and you're in a spot where you can do that. You got Gibbs doing the majority, but each of them playing a little bit of a role. And next week, you might see just 1 or 2 more carries for each of them, which is like 3 to 6 more carries. And you nudge it up. Gibbs had a lot of first half carries, and it looked like he might eclipse his number of carries for the most he's had in a game, but he didn't do that because in the second half, they were able to spread that out a little bit. All right, before we hit the major storylines, anything else you did not like or any concerns you had, James?
I guess there's a couple of quick hit things. Broderick Martin not being active was a bit of a surprise, and I'm just kind of wondering what's going on there with him. You know, they used an injury reserve activation on him and haven't really gotten much for it. So I'm kind of wondering why he's not getting any run, especially after Lee McNeil getting hurt. And he's not the same exact defensive tackle kind of guy, but it'll be interesting to see if more information comes out in that. And then I guess, you know, the Brandon Joseph release is another, I think, bad thing that happened on Saturday with, getting arrested and then the Lions almost immediately releasing him. The timing with Iffy coming back was great. It worked out. But it was just not a good look.
Yeah. Yep. So it'll be interesting to keep our eye on the secondary and see what's going on with Broderick Martin, because that is a guy that if he can contribute and play a role, that could help bolster part of that line right there. Mm-hmm. All right, well, let's hit some major storylines. James, you had one you wanted to hit, speaking a little historical here.
Yeah, and so in the history of the league, there's been 4 coaches that lost 13 games or more in their first season and then had a 13-win season later. Those coaches are Chuck Noll, Bill Walsh, and Jimmy Johnson. And Dan Campbell just put his name in that group. So that's a pretty good group to be in. Those guys all won Super Bowls, obviously. And then
let me touch on that before you move to the next thing. 13 wins this season. You guys, I can't confirm this. I just saw it on social media, but it seems like it's probably accurate. 13 wins this season by Dan Campbell is also the total number of wins Matt Patricia had in his entire career as a Detroit Lion head coach. Just
no comment.
Yeah, putting that out there. All right. James, I know where you're going to get to, so I want to throw something else out to set you up here. Stats. Coach doesn't want to hear about this, okay? Coach wants to go 1-0. Nothing else matters, okay? The Lions PR group, I couldn't keep up with all the tweets they put out there. The Lions are setting so many new individual stats, so many team stats, new highs for the franchise. They're breaking records from last year. There were at least 4 or 5 of them that I saw out there right after the game. It's pretty incredible. James, I think you want to put at least 1 or 2 of those things out there for us.
Yeah, just one other stat. I mean, with Jared Goff throwing for 336, 3 touchdowns, no picks, although he could have had one, and a near perfect passer rating of 137. It's like, can we finally not talk about how Jared Goff can't play outside or in the cold?
James,
he hasn't lost outside or in the cold this year.
Yeah, and there's been two games because that Green Bay game was not warm when they were over there and the weather was nasty. James, again, I don't know why this is. We've been saying this for, almost 2 years now that it's overhyped, it's overblown. And I just simply point back to on fourth down with the game on the line at Lambeau Field, the game you were at, James, and it was like 0 degrees out. The Lions throw the ball, right? I mean, they put the ball in Goff's hands. He throws it for the winning first down. And so if a guy can't play outdoors, you're probably not making that play call. So, yeah, there were probably some games that backed those stats up, and then people just kept repeating them because it was easy.
Yeah.
Detroit doesn't like easy.
Yeah, I think it was sort of a thing when he played for the Rams, but Jared Goff's not the same quarterback he was when he played with the Rams. The Lions have made him a better quarterback than the Rams did. So I think those stories are just old and tired, and obviously should be put to bed.
All right, Coach, what do you got to add to this?
Yeah, Herm Edwards brought it up and said the Lions don't like to play in weather. He brought that up in the pregame, and we were going crazy. Whatever, it's just leave it alone. Do your due diligence and look it up. Just look at all the games. Just look at the game he did this year. So, one thing I want to touch, one more positive now that we got a little bit of negative on that.
Yeah. Hey, Coach, before you do that, can I throw out one thing I think the Lions might do in the final week of the season that might remove the ceiling of Ford Field when they play the Vikings, just to make sure people know we're okay with the cold?
Yeah, and that's right. But, oh, my God, I think they're indoors too. But anyways.
Tell us what you got here, Coach.
Anyways, one other thing. Who had the momentum at halftime? The Chicago Bears, right? Scored a touchdown, 19 seconds, 27-14. Lions come on the third quarter. Chicago gets a stop there. Oh my God, they can, bring it within one score. What do? 34-14. We took the ball right down and scored on them. And I meant to, that right there was when I saw that, I'm like, yes. That was the way to answer, boys. So anyways, that was just.
It was because it kept them from getting closer. Like, it was great the way they ended the first half with 58 seconds getting that touchdown pass. Obviously, the move with Allen there for the 3 plays and 70 yards for 19 seconds didn't end well, but you're exactly right. We came out, 2-minute, 42-second drive, got the touchdown, 34-14. They kicked a field goal later in the third, but then nothing ever happened after that. And so it kept the game at a distance. It kept the Bears from getting too much hope and from making a comeback.
Well, the weather was different there. Like when the Lions were on the field, it was 75 and sunny. But when the Bears were on the offense, it was really cold. So that was the difference. It's really weird how the Lions did that so that Jared Goff would feel like he was in a dome.
There's some incredible stuff going on there. All right, well, as we get to final thoughts here, major storylines, let's take a look at the playoff race. We have to. There's 2 weeks left. James, what do you want to start with something here?
Well, the Seahawks didn't do us any good. They came close, but couldn't pull that one out against the Vikings. So that would have made today just pretty much a dream day. But Washington's last minute win over Philadelphia was huge. Gives the Lions a huge leg up over the Eagles for the number 1 seed. But also it eliminates the 49ers from playoff contention. And that's who we play next week. So I think that's going to be an advantage for the Lions, and that they're playing a team that has nothing to play for really next week on the road. So I think it helps kind of balance that out a little bit.
There's a lot to unpack here. I've done a little bit of looking. Coach, I'm just looking at scenarios. I'm not projecting anything, okay? First off, we do not play until Monday night. So, we have like 8 days now. So the Lions will play the 49ers on Monday night. At that point, we'll know whether the Vikings have won or lost. And they're playing the Packers. And let's look at this also. Washington beating Philly, it was good because we can get the 1 seed. I mean, we still could even without that. But it gives us a little bit more margin of error. But even though it doesn't. Because what's up, James?
It does a little bit. One kind of funny thing about that is that in Dan Campbell's press conference, if you're listening to it after the game, when Washington scores that touchdown to win the game, you can hear the players cheering in the background.
Totally. Yes, you can. It was great. Yeah. But here's the thing. The Lions, I felt like we want the 1 seed, but we need the 2 seed. Okay? That's the way I see it. You need to win the NFC North. That's what matters the most in this whole race. And now with Philly losing, well, whoever wins the NFC North is likely going to get the number 1 seed. And it matters the most. And the way it's looking is this, is Philly's going to probably play Washington in the first round of the playoffs, okay? Because Philly's going to probably have the 2 seed, and Washington will have the 7 seed. And then 2 NFC North teams will go on the road to the AFC West, the NFC South and the NFC West, and they will play there. And unless both NFC North teams win, the winning NFC North team will then go play the number 1 seed. And you follow me here? So Philly will not even play an NFC North team until the NFC Championship game. So if the Lions win and get the number 1 seed, they would likely face the Vikings or the Packers at their first playoff game. And so I don't know if you followed all that, but Washington's going to probably rematch with Philadelphia. It's too bad it doesn't get jumbled up or mixed up more. And I don't know how that's all going to happen. But that's what it's looking like at this point. I will be surprised if it turns out differently. And we don't know who's going to play which day next week. I can tell you this, because the Lions have the Monday night game, they're probably not playing the Saturday game, right? And we all know with so much on the line, it's probably going to be the Sunday night game. And another reason that matters, that's even more likely, is with the Seahawks losing today, I think if the Rams win next week, then I think the Rams have clinched the division, because I think they have the tiebreaker over Seattle. Because I know they've won 1 game already. I think they have the next tiebreaker, which means that game doesn't matter. So it's trending like the Lions are going to play the Sunday night finale on Sunday Night Football on NBC. That's what I'm seeing. James, any thoughts on any of that?
I mean, basically the Lions beat the 49ers. They've got everything that they need, for the most part. They've got their destiny in their own hands. If the Vikings game is consequential, they can still win that to keep the number 1 seed. But if they beat the 49ers next week, they're in the driver's seat for that number 1 seed, getting a week off, getting some more of those injured players back. So they got to go 1-0 this week, as coach says, to beat the 49ers first.
He does say that, but I want to bring something up. They don't have to beat the 49ers, because as long as they beat the Vikings in the final game, we win the division. And with Philly losing this week, the only game that matters is the Vikings game now. I mean, am I wrong on that?
Nope.
No, but if the Lions beat the 49ers and the Vikings lose, then that last game against the Vikings is not really for anything, and
Totally.
the Lions rest some players.
Oh, totally. And we'll know going into the 49ers game what the Vikings did. But yeah, so it's weird. Obviously, you're going to play the game like you're going to play the game, and we will totally get into that. But that's the thing that just dawned on me as we're doing this is, since Philadelphia lost, the only thing that matters for us is to beat the Vikings that last game, or if the Vikings lose, win against San Francisco, and we've got it. And then we can, look at resting or doing whatever. So, yeah, Seattle losing, man, I was looking forward to a double Christmas present. We didn't quite get it. But you know what? We got to win, and that's what we wanted, and we got out healthy. So let's turn to final thoughts here. James, any last things to wrap this thing up?
No, man. I mean, it's nice to be going into Christmas. 13 wins. I mean, any of us would have been happy with this at the beginning of the season. 13 wins so far. So they're just putting a bow on it, man.
That they are, man. I would have been happy with a 13-4 record before the season started. And you're telling me it's 13-2 and there's a possibility to add to it. That's pretty incredible. Coach, what do you got?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's beautiful where they're at. And I think the one thing they're going to do is they're going to play to win every game. That's Dan Campbell's mantra. I mean, he's not going to, they're not looking at, but from a coaching standpoint, excuse me, the first thing you set a tone every week, every year in pregame is, yeah, of course, win game one, get 1-0, but win your division. Okay, win your division. And so that's what they're going to go after. Campbell even said it, we're chasing the 1 seed, we're chasing our division. We got a bunch of guys around us. And so I think that's the biggest thing they're going to do. But again, we're going to go back. That's all inside. They're not even worried about the division until week 18. I think that's his motto. And they're going to go in and they are going to go after San Francisco to become 1-0 because they beat us in the playoffs last year and knocked us out for a chance for the Super Bowl. And I don't care if San Francisco is full strength, the best team in the league or the worst team in the league. Lions have been waiting for this game all year.
We will get into more of this next episode, but Coach, I think the Lions want to go into San Francisco the same way they went into Dallas. Okay? I think they are that motivated. And so we'll have even more to talk about next episode. Coach James, thank you so much for joining us. Folks, thank you for tuning in. You can find more episodes and content at notthesameoldlions.com. Tell your friends and family about the show. Subscribe, like, comment on socials. Please subscribe regardless of your listening platform. And until next time, stay gritty, my friends.